little outline over here. Um, so basically, it's just the evolution of civil rights in American history, and it's by me. And the class is critical issues in American history. Just a quick overview of everything. This is my outline. This is my introduction. Civil rights are the fundamental rights that guarantee equal treatment under the law. This presentation I'm going to show is going to explain the rights that have evolved over time and are significant in history, like events, amendments, and social moments that we'll eventually come to see, and I would say documents like the Declaration of Independence, and I would say maybe touching in on some modern movements, I would say too. So this is my introduction slide. I have a photo of a timeline of the civil rights and the civil rights movements, and I have a couple bullet points over here that's going to explain what I'm going to be doing here and kind of reviewing during these slides. Okay. Now on the second slide, I have a picture of the Declaration of Independence. And the foundation of civil rights in America began with the nation's founding documents, referencing obviously the Declaration of Independence. Um, However, the rights that were not extended to all people initially abolished movement fought to expand these rights. So basically, everything that was not extended inside of the Declaration of Independence, people made movements on and pushed outwards in that area. So basically, talking about I would say the Declaration of Independence covered some things on being equal in slavery and things like that, but I still did not very much change the way people thought and felt, I guess, about black people. And everything just very much initially happened in the moment during that time. It was very hard for people to understand that blacks were very diverse and segregated in a way. So I'm going over this area of this slide, just foundations and the things that I would say in the civil right movement was really touched upon in that era of life. On to my third slide, which is the Civil War Reconstruction Amendments, which is, let me see over here. Okay, so it's the Civil War that was a turning point in American the American history, which is America's civil rights history. Um, Over here, I'm just reading some notes real quick. Um, so basically, in this slide, I was really just trying to interpret on my outline that the laws that were being passed during this time, which to basically help America proceed forward. Excuse me. Which was sorry, my throat. I was sick a little bit today. Um, but I'm aiming in this slide just to talk about the laws that were passed and the amendments. Really touching on it right now because the 13th Amendment abolished slavery, 14th basically guaranteed citizenship and equal protection for blacks. But realistically, if you do more research on that topic, people still were going around killing. The KKK was formed, and they were still I would say killing each other and finding ways to put fear into the blacks. So even though the laws were passed, this is where I was touching upon earlier, where the minds of the whites and the minds of that kind of era were still the same even though the laws were passed. And just Jim Crow laws on discrimination and just for giving rights to the blacks and really showing how it really was during that era. Okay. I think we're hitting the 5 minute mark here. Okay. Um, but now on to the fifth I think this is correct. Yep, the fifth slide I have here. Which is I'm going to be talking about women's movement, basically. You know, like the early efforts they have, which is, let me see in these notes. Sorry. Women's, like, these women fought for decades to gain the right to vote, like, facing strong oppositions from, like, not Congress, but very much like the government, since they're old men and they didn't want women in power. So it was very hard for women to really climb up the ladder, I would say, in the government wise, in like in politics, because of how oppressed they were and how they really didn't have a voice in very much anything at all during that era too. So I feel like this is just my opinion, going a little bit off topic, but um the woman, I feel like we're like really the same to blacks kind of, but not, because like they really didn't have any rights in that area too. So they had some rights, but I feel like in my opinion they really weren't any better than a slave um during this era, which it's very important to me that they made these efforts in time to give women, the right to vote, after not being able to for decades, and like just laying the groundwork for gender equality, for they could get equal pay and being like, I would just say, like, equal to men since they've been under them for so long. On to the civil rights movement, which is, I'm just gonna review like the 1950s and 60s. Just a quick review of, like, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, and then I just put some major events like the March on Washington, which is one of the largest protests. I think it was recorded. It's when MLK gave his "I Have a Dream" speech, which I put. Um, I should probably put a picture. I think I am probably gonna add it when I send it. A picture of it, of the video that they had. But just a quick review over the things that I would say mainstream things people really know about the civil rights movement. And on to the next slide, which I'm going to be talking about modern implications of civil rights, which is just like, modern things that we have of the new age that also happened, I guess, kind of like in the old era of life itself. So just talking about civil rights movements beyond African Americans and women. Native Americans, Latinos, and LGBTQ community also fought for recognition and equal rights, which I'm not sure. I was looking into it a little bit, but I was looking also for Latino rights, and I was looking through some things there. I'm not sure if I included it in this slide. I don't think I did, but I definitely do. If we are gonna do another outline like this, add rights like that. There's also Hispanics during this time, and basically old people of color, I would say, were going through very much the same exact thing. And I feel like during this era, it was solely focused on blacks, and I feel like it really like covered over, other things that were also going on with different races. Not saying that blacks aren't important or anything like that, but just saying that I feel like in that era, like that was very much like empowered to the blacks, while also other races were struggling also during that time. But modern implications, like saying, I would say like women are still struggling with wages and equal rights and all these things, and like the Black Lives Matter movement too, and just like also you got like abortion laws and like women wanting rights for their body, and like there's so many things going on during this time and this modern thing and this modern era really. But the U.S. civil rights movements inspired activism worldwide. So I feel like in this slide, that's what I was really trying to come across. But protests against police, Me Too movement, which is focusing on gender equality and workplace harassment, because women were getting harassed at their workplaces and things like this, and I had to come to a movement where people really had to protest on these type of things because it wasn't being talked about or being put to justice, I guess, enough. But enough on this slide. Going to our conclusion. Quick summary. civil rights movements have shaped American society, but the work is not completely done yet, in my opinion. It's important to, to stay informed and engaged in promoting equality and justice and making sure that all these things are still being upheld. And I would say this is my summary. It's been going on for a long time. Like there's still challenges that are continuing even like after all these movements like voter suppression, racial justice, gender equality, like I stated in this slide. But I just put call to action here. Like I guess like just put action out there, encouragement to stay engaged in promoting equality and justice. I feel like everybody should be engaged in everything that's happening right now in the world, like with Trump and like the voting process and like just being very much involved in that as well as these protests and like understanding these things. And I feel like it's very important, especially if you're going to be a voter in the future. So yeah, this is my presentation on the evolution of civil rights in America. And thank you. How do I stop?